He holds a bachelor degree in economics, international, from the International Islamic University, Malaysia, and a Master of Business Administration from the University Technology, that is Mara, Malaysia. Welcome, Board Director, we're happy to have you. Well, thank you very much. We will allow them about 5 minutes each to just give us a bit of an overview. I will ask a question, they'll take about 5 minutes each, and after they finish, we will encourage you to take down any questions that you may want to ask. We'll open it to the plenary. Allow me to begin by asking Dr. Julius Kipngetich, who is the Group CEO of Jubilee Insurance, from his experience in both public and in private sector. What are the impediments to improved productivity in the public service? You've had that experience in both places. Maybe you can be able to share some of us in the next 5 minutes or so what could be the impediments and probably issues of culture, productivity. You can just throw in and help us to understand that direction. Dr.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to espouse on this conversation about productivity of the country. You know, sometimes we talk about private sector and public sector as if they were in different countries. All of us have the same objective. The public sector, you call your customer a citizen. But when you cross over to private sector, remember it's the same guy. So all of us have an interest in having the same guy progress in their life. So therefore, we have an interest collectively together in making sure that the interests of the country progress. Now, what are the interests of the country? There are many metrics of measuring. The most basic, of course, is GDP. GDP is the output of the country. How much output or income have you earned? Okay, and it's both the private and public sector together, and they must work together. Now, what does the public service do? The public service, creates the foundation. It provides security, it provides the roads, which is a common service. That's why it's called public. Public is the common service. Then private sector then advances the interests of the country. So when it comes then to the question of productivity, productivity is an input-output, okay? How much of an input to give you a certain output? Now, when we say it's productive, it means either you use less inputs to give you the same output, or the same inputs to give you a higher output. So that's really the logic. So it is in our interest collectively together as a country, private and public, to make sure that the income of the country rises faster. Now, when the income of the country rises faster, then we say collectively we are increasing the productivity of the country. Now, what is the role of private sector and public sector? Now, let me focus on the public sector. What is its role? The role of the public sector is facilitative. You must then create that foundation for private sector to thrive so that the mwananchi increases their output. Why we are in this conference is we are increasingly getting worried as a country that the public sector is not pulling its weight, okay? So that then the rest of the country moves faster. Because when you move faster, that's when now we say you are increasing your productivity. I always use this example of Kenya and Singapore. Kenya, in 1963, our per capita income was $440. Singapore was roughly around 200. It was actually $180. It was a very poor country abandoned by the British. In fact, they tried to join Malaysia. 2 years later, in 1965, they said the marriage did not work and they left. Fast forward 60 years later, what has happened? In 2024, Kenya's per capita income is around $2,000. So we have moved 5 times in 60 years. Singapore has moved from $200. Today, their per capita income is $89,000. Remember, we are at 2,000. They are at 89,000. That alone gives you that measure of productivity. What did they do to make sure that Singapore is at 89,000 and Kenya is at 2,000? Yet we were ahead of them. Let me give you the metrics of their public service so that I throw the challenge to you. Singapore has the highest paid civil servants in the world. I know you might want to ask me, okay, so why don't we pay ours the best? You see, how does government fund itself? It funds itself from taxes. Taxes come from private sector. So what does government help private sector to increase productivity so that then it can tax it? A tax is a levy on production. If there's no production, there's no tax. So if civil servants want to be the highest paid like Singapore, then they must facilitate production in the economy. Then they tax it. Then now you pay yourself. That is what the Singapore Public Service did. They hired the best, who then facilitated private sector. So one of the highest foreign direct investments actually go to Singapore. And remember, Singapore is the size of Nairobi. So if we actually understand that to be productive, it means you facilitate things to move faster. And if things move faster, there is higher production in the economy. And if there is higher production in the economy, then government gets money because it taxes it, and then private sector can make more profit and then redeploy that profit to increase output in the economy. So the two of them are joined at the hip, and private sector and government. So, for example, when civil servants say we want higher pay, one of the metrics we need to ask them is, how much have you facilitated production in the economy? That's what we need to ask. So that then, if they say we have facilitated higher production in the economy, then we say, okay, pay the tax. So sometimes, civil servants need to ask themselves, if I come and I put my coat on a seat and I disappear, and then at the end of the year, I want a pay rise, where will the money come from? Taxes is a levy on production. If there is no production in the economy, or if you have not facilitated production, that means productivity in the economy is lower, taxes will be lower by extension. So it's very important that we focus on that. Finally, Chair, is what does it take, therefore, for that productivity to increase in the public service, as even the private sector increases theirs? Number one is leadership. I have worked in a public institution. I was the director of KWS for 8 years, plus many other institutions. My focus every day was to see how we have facilitated private sector to thrive, how we have facilitated mwananchi to increase their production. So we build the capacity to prevent human-wildlife conflict so that then mwananchi can do their business. We facilitated tourists to come in faster so that then more tourists can come. By the time we reached 2011, Kenya had the highest number of tourists ever since independence, and that 2011 has never been beaten to date. We facilitated for private sector to thrive, and by extension, we expanded capacity of KWS to further support the same private sector. So leadership is key. So if you are a governor or a president or a minister, whatever you do, ask yourself that question. What am I doing to facilitate production in the economy? So leadership is key. Number two is clarity. Clarity of the goal, strategy, clarity of the structure, the support, and clarity of the processes. Now, if you don't clarify, you create confusion. And there are so many civil servants that arrive in the morning at the workplace without understanding, why am I here? And even if I know why, do I understand how to execute? So clarity of strategy, structure, process. That must be very clear. And some of it is built into law. In government, it's in law. Now, are some of those laws too old to support the aims of what you want? Number 3 is reward structure. We must always have clarity in how we reward people. Very clear. In private sector, it's very clear. It's profitability. How much are you contributing to that profit? And bonus is very clear. In public service, it may not be that clear, because then the concept of profit is not. Now, we need to define metrics. If you are a governor or a minister, your ministry or your county must have very clear metrics of how we reward. Because once we reward clearly, and most of those rewards should be tied to citizen support. How are you supporting the citizen to be productive? So that then when the citizen is productive, we tax that citizen, and then we create a virtuous cycle. So the reward system must be both ways. You do your job, the citizen rewards you by paying more tax, and then when more tax is paid, you are able to support the citizen to do more, and the cycle continues. Because the danger we face today is we are taxing more and giving the citizen less and less. So you enter into a vicious cycle. And that is very dangerous for the country. So the tax must always be used for the benefit of the citizen, so that the citizen can keep on producing, and then we levy the tax. So reward system must be very, very, very clear. Finally, is culture, a very strong culture. What is culture? Culture are 3 things. Culture is the value system. Culture is the behaviors, which is accepted in that organization or that country. And also culture are the habits of the people. So 3 things. So we need not to say, in our public service and our country today, what's our value system? My worry today is we are almost being overwhelmed by corruption. Now, what does corruption do in dampening productivity? Corruption kills the spirit of production. So if you are, whatever role you play in the public service, the minute you accept corruption, you are actually saying, I am killing productivity. So we must address this question of corruption as a value system. Then behaviors. Now, we have reached a point whereby we no longer punish bad behavior. There are no consequences for bad behavior. So, if, for example, a case goes to, say, one of the commissions, the purpose of the commissions was to improve HR, okay? Whether it's TSC Commission, National Police Commission, or Public Service Commission, all those commissions at the county level is the public service boards. We must strengthen them to make sure that people exhibit the right behavior. If there are no consequences for bad behavior, productivity drops. Because then people will say, why am I putting effort, yet at the end of the month, we all receive the same salary. Okay? And then the other part of culture is the habits. Okay? It is the leader that sets the tone. Okay? If the leader comes to work at 11 as a habit, what do you think the followers do? They do the same. So the habits of the leader, the behavior which is condoned, and the value system must be reviewed. And if you strengthen that, I'm almost certain that productivity will begin to rise. You will see our income rise. I mean, the final example I'll give is Botswana. I've given Singapore. Let me give you the example of Botswana. Botswana is the same size as Kenya. Almost the same. 80% of it is Kalahari Desert. 80%. In fact, virtually the entire population lives at the border with South Africa. But if you go to their capital city, Gaborone, Gaborone is around 300,000 people, but there are no slums. The total population is 2 million. Gaborone is around 300,000, there are no slums. There are only two things that drive that economy. Tourism, they have the highest number of elephants in the world, and mining. You know the per capita income in Botswana? Okay, ours is 2,000. The per capita income in Botswana is $8,000, 4 times Kenya's per capita income, and evenly spread in the population because there are no slums. Slums are an indicator of inequality.
Dr. Don't finish everything, eh?
I'll finish.
The last questions.
Let me finish. So,
yes.
So therefore, I was saying, Botswana, for us in Africa, is a very good example to study. That if you actually eliminate corruption, everybody rises. And if everybody rises, what will happen? Crime drops, and our city is livable for all of us. So let's make the public service strong, productive, and private sector responds, and the citizen will thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, a round of applause is befitting. Thank you very much. The next question is to His Excellency Honorable Muthomi Njuki. Just following up with that, but now focusing on the county, we just want to hear your views. What do you think will need to happen for there to be productivity improvement in the counties?
Thank you very much, and also thank you for allowing us to focus on the areas of our mastery, which is the devolved units of government. Allow also me to say that the devolved units of government are less than 12 years old, but they did not start from zero. Most of what used to be called the de facto authorities, the municipal council, the county councils, and the cities, all that they had started in 1964 was then converted to the workforce of the county governments, and even the structures that were there, most counties still survive on them. And if we narrowed ourselves down to just the workforce, which is actually the resource that drives all the others, you might agree with me that the function that used to be carried out by the de facto authorities is not exactly what the county governments are doing. We got 14 devolved functions from the national government, some of them that were totally new to the de facto authorities. Yet, all the workforce that was with the de facto authorities, every single worker, including the cleaner, who was working with the de facto authority, was moved to the county government with their salary skills, with the skills that they have for them to be able to carry out jobs in departments which probably they are not familiar with or just renamed, and that is what we are supposed to contend with. So what do we find ourselves with? We find ourselves with a workforce that is one, in terms of skills, preparedness, some of them are completely mismatched from the department where they operate because they were not cut for the job. But you know, the work conditions and terms in public sector is not the same as the private sector. It will take you all your investment as a county to try and get rid of them in any way or to change the same. And therefore you're stuck with them. So you are left with in a catch-22 position where you have workforce that is not cut for the job, you want productivity, and yet what you have cannot be delivered. Some of them are not teachable in terms of skill upgrade. Why? Because you know the old saying that it is very hard to teach an old dog new tricks. Not exactly in the same context, but you know, if you have staff who were employed long time ago in a very young age. They never went to school to upgrade their skills. Now you're giving them jobs where you want to automate systems. They cannot be able to learn using computers. And their job, their pay, because they have been in the system for quite some time, is up there. So when you employ new graduates to do the same, because that is the alternative you're left with, because they are there, you can't get rid of them. So you have to let them stay and employ new staff, who of course, because of competition at the moment, earn much less. You find a graduate who is earning much less than what the guy who was in the factory authorities is earning, because the pay grade from SRC at the moment puts you at that entry. For example, you'll find a graduate who has done engineering. The entry grade earns them around 54,000 as entry job group. And you find in the same department you have a driver who has been there with the factory authority, who came from the factory authority with 60,000, and every 3 years you need to increase the salary, so they are at 74. So a driver who is driving an engineer is earning more than the engineer himself. That is really demoralizing for the staff. And it is the same even in other cadres, where you find a secretary in the office that was working with the factory authority. They earn more or less the same with the boss, or even more than the boss. And there is a recipe for disaster in terms of what would call motivation for the staff, and even how much to be able to work. On the other hand, apart from that skill that you can be able to upgrade, there's the issue of the terms of employment. Most of the staff that were either devolved from the national government and from the de facto authorities to work with the counties were on permanent and pensionable terms. And that, in public sector, all of us are aware, it means that is a class of people that you can't touch in terms of what you can be able to enforce. Because whether they work or not, whether you issue show cause letters, it is just literature. They will still work the same way they were working, unless you have another way of displaying, because at the end of the month, whether I work or not, I will still get my pay. Come the end of 3 years, the SRC structure says that you have to earn your promotion because of the time you've actually worked. Some of them don't even care about the promotion, which we normally call non-common cadres, where you have to be interviewed for you to be promoted. They are satisfied with what they have, and they just wait for the 3 years to be promoted. So you are stuck with workforce that, because they have a job that is guaranteed, it is permanent and pensionable, you do not have any way of enhancing production in terms of giving targets, unless you come up with the carrot factor, which in this case also is costly. You know, carrot structure in government is also costly, because you have to dangle the carrot for them to be able to reach it, and you remunerate, which costs you resources as well. You are much aware, even those who are in public sector, in private sector, that it takes more bureaucracy in government to make decisions and implement more than the private sector. That's why the private sector is more efficient compared to the public sector, because the decisions they make and implement do not have to go through many layers of decision makers, including reporting to powers outside your government for that case. The other very big issue is the issue of changing technology and automation of systems to make them more efficient to work. Most of the times you need to upgrade the skills in the workers. It means you have to take them to schools. And most of the workers will insist on you spending money on them as the employer to upgrade their skills if you want them to use a certain technology. What it means that, unlike maybe in the private sector where you find most of the workers sponsor themselves in school, for them to upgrade their skills, for them to get a promotion or be able to remain relevant. If you want me to use skills of your new technology in public sector, then you have to give me leave and take me to school, and that's the cost of taxpayers' money, and then I can be able to do the job you want. That, of course, is impediment in terms of productivity, because it's not a must that they get very good skills once you take them to school, and it also costs you for you to be able to take them to that school. Some of them will not upgrade at all, and I've already given you an example of de facto authority workers, who most of them are what was the main role by the de facto authorities. Revenue collection for the local de facto authorities was very important. So you'll find most of the workers in revenue collection, even when you blame the counties for being inefficient in revenue collection, most of our staff are what we delegated from the local authorities, because we are specialists in collecting tax. You know, remember what you used to call Kanjo? They are still there for Sakaja. You'll find an old man, an old lady who has not gone for retire. They have no interest in automation of system. They do not want to learn. And even when you try it, they sabotage it most of the times, because a skill that you don't understand, you do not want to support it. So that is also a serious problem, because you are not able to move in tandem with what is happening in the rest of the world. Well, a private company will automate very fast. I normally ask my people, why is it that in my hospitals, when I put a queuing system in the hospital, it breaks down in a few days? Yet, a local bank there in the same town has a more efficient queuing system than my hospital. Why is it that if I go to a local Java or AFC, I'll pick my ticket and wait to be called, and I can't do the same for 12 uninterrupted months in a hospital? Of course, some people sabotage the system so that they have an entry of practicing the culture they have known, or probably making some people jump queues, because this automation queuing system you put there does not serve their interest, because they do not have a target for the same. So it becomes a big problem in that area. And the other one is the remunerations for the public sector. We like it or not, most of the time in the lower cadre, you may not be able to match it with the private sector. And even the opportunity to get promoted, you may not be able to match it with the public sector. Therefore, most of the times we lose very skilled workers to private sector, because they're always poached when it's better pay. And therefore, you keep on training and they leave. You train again, they leave, because you're not competitive enough as a government to keep those very sharp minds because of the system you work with. Where in public sector, the sky is, the limit is just here, is the roof. In the private sector, it is the sky. If you work harder, you get better, your pocket is better. When the company grows or the private sector grows, you grow with them. Government is not the same. Therefore, we have that problem of losing very skilled workers to the private sector. And lastly but not least, so that I give an opportunity for my colleagues also to say something. Well, those who work in private sector can hardly get a situation where at the end of the month there's no pay because there are no resources. That is the order of the day in county governments. You've worked for all month, no salary, because exchequer has not been released. Next month you work, despite losing the pay for you haven't been paid for the other month. You are in second month, you've not been paid. Currently, as we speak, we're on the third month. Counties have not been able to pay salaries. I want you to imagine a situation where you are working in probably a department that requires you to focus, like probably the medical sector. Your mortgage has not been paid. Your children are out of school. How will you focus? And that becomes the biggest demotivation for workers. and therefore it affects efficiency in terms of delivery. So as a country, we need to have a policy that will ensure that we remunerate the one resource that controls other resource before we remunerate the others. Before we pay the contractor for roads, before we pay the contractor for affordable housing, before we put that money to be able to automate systems, why don't we pay the worker that controls all that on time? That way will ensure that the productivity still stays at peak. Because at the end of the day, even when you don't pay them on time, even when you pay them late, you still pay them the same amount of money you had paid if you had paid on time. However, you'll have lost production because you have a worker who is not motivated, and it costs you the same remuneration with that the one who would have been very efficient. And let me say that the stringent or the bureaucratic process of getting rid of unproductive staff in government is also what makes the public sector be more inefficient as compared to the private sector, because they are more or less have a guarantee that you can't shake me, you can't move me, you are stuck with me, you have no way out. So it is something maybe we need to look at the future, even as we try to improve the efficiency of the same. I know I'd said lastly, but allow me to say this last because I'm a politician. The unions are usually very powerful and strong in the public sector. When I learned of unions when I was a very young person, the strongest that I knew was the dock workers. That used to be led by, I think he was called Kirikou. Kirikou, the old people who are old like me can remember that.
Nasema Kiliku, Kennedy Kiliku.
Kennedy Kirikou.
Yeah, okay.
In public sector where we have unionizable groups, they have been able to negotiate their way into very lucrative pay, very good pay slips as compared to the other sectors in the same government that have nothing in terms of union. That is why today, a nurse who is working in Tharaka Nithi County will enter at around 76,000 if they are certificate, 86 if they are diploma, and I don't talk about the doctors because they're on strike, nurses are not. But an engineer in the same government, an accountant in the same government who do not have a union, you just find out where they are. And because of those collective bargaining agreements, those ones keep on rising. Some of the enumeration is not in terms of what is approved by the SRC as the basic pay. It is on allowances is negotiated. Currently, we pay things called uniform allowance. I pay uniform allowance. We started with 25,000. Then they said by another 2 years, that uniform will have increased to 30. And even when the economy is improving, the uniform still increases because that is what they have bargained for. So because of those unions, then the labor force becomes very, very, very expensive in public. And also we don't have uniformity. So if I have a colleague who is working in a department where they have a strong union and I'm not, we are in the same job group, but they earn more than me, that is not motivation. I get demotivated definitely. So it is something that we need to think as a government. I don't know what the government did to plug the teeth of the Kenya National Union of Teachers. But I see nowadays, I mean, I'm saying this in public because all of you know that used to be a monster in Kenya. Today I just see teachers being employed. I don't see them on streets. Work is going on. So probably the formula that was used to pluck off their teeth needs to reign on the KMPDU. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You shared quite a bit of light, and there seems to be quite a bit of challenges in terms of transitioning from the devolution period up to now to reach a point where you can say, now we are productive. I think we are in for some very difficult choices not very far from now. Not very far from now. Because if we reach a point where we can't produce because we've got employees who don't want technology, they don't want to change, they want to be where they are, somewhere along the way something has to give. Now, Your Excellency Gladys Wanga, with all this being spoken by His Excellency here, do you see any opportunity of collaboration between county government, national government, and even probably the private sector in leveraging resources to pursue any form of productivity improvement from the county level?
Thank you very much, and I think it's been very interesting to listen to my two colleagues who've spoken ahead. Governor Mudomi has given the picture as it is and the challenges that are faced at county government level. Dr. Kipkentich has spoken to, productivity and how we get there. And Dr. Kipkentich is a friend of Homa Bay County, and once he found us in a workshop discussing our vision and where we want to go as Homa Bay. Our GDP currently, and he spoke to GDP, as Homa Bay is at 99,000 shillings per capita. And we were saying how we want to get this to at least 500,000 in the next 10 years. And I think his one word was, we need to attain a first-class public service. It's something we still remember. How do we get to a first-class public service? And that is the only way we will be able to achieve or get to where we are going. And I'd also like to comment that when devolution kicked in 2013, people were excited. The masses were excited about devolution of power. They were excited to just see sirens, all manner of things, seat of power, the headquarters. People were fighting about where should the headquarters be. People were very excited about devolution of power. Right now, as devolution matures and is getting into its third phase, people are thinking seriously about devolution of service, efficient service delivery at the ground level. So the standards now is not just how excited they become that, oh, that's our governor, she's passing, she has a siren. No, you'd rather be on foot, but telling them how their agriculture is going to work.
Yep.
You'd rather be in gumboots with them, seeing how, you're going to deal with flooding. You'd rather, they'd rather even not have an office of the governor, even if you're sitting on a broken chair, they'd rather that, but you're dealing with healthcare. So this is where we are at. And that is why an efficient and productive public service then becomes a big priority. And some of the challenges have been highlighted. And, we have been trying at county level to translate our CIDPs into a performance management framework and making sure that every person is responsible within their performance contract for items within the CIDP. Then now you spoke to collaborations. Then there kicks in the issue of disbursements. Every quarter you're supposed to review the performance. But you see, it's April, and we are waiting for February disbursement of money. So our first partnership really is with the National Treasury to see that we can actually have, as per the law, on 15th of every month, have the disbursement of the funds so that people are organized. Because if I'm going to pin down my sister, I see even my chair of the Public Service Board, he's here. If I'm going to pin them down on performance, they're going to tell me, Governor, we are still waiting for money. Money didn't come for this, money didn't come for the other. That's a big discussion. But SRC is a partner that we need to have more proactively, not just as a not just as an advisory sort of issuing body, but building capacities at county level, a stronger partnership between a body like SRC, the Public Service Commission. We are struggling with our boards, we are struggling with performance contracting, for example. How do we, performance management, how do we do it? How do we do it properly? How do we assess? How do we keep going? As Homa Bay, for example, and most of the other counties, we have instituted these performance management frameworks. But you find that capacities, again, as Governor Mudomi said, for you to attract some of these experienced skills into the counties, it's more difficult because nobody wants to come and wait for salaries for 3 months. You don't have rent, you don't have what have you. So these capacities need to be shared. ESCC, and ESCC, because, we cannot have, as Kipngerich was saying, there's going to be no productivity with corruption just thriving everywhere, and people not taking responsibility for their actions. And ESCC, I'm not talking about ESCC just writing things on the newspaper and saying, or on the TV, shaming people there. No. It's ESCC which is first building our own capacities to deal with corruption at that level, but also ESCC that is, alert, that is, ensuring that people are adhering to national values. When I became governor, I thought my biggest responsibility, as I was walking through the hospitals, the schools, I thought my biggest challenge was going to be how do I build the schools, how do I build, but you come and find out that your biggest challenge is on organizational culture. How are people thinking about public service? How are they thinking about their responsibilities? How are they, people just march in at 11, and they're okay, and there some are in sleepers, you're wondering, who is my staff and who is not my staff here? How are we, you call for a meeting at 8 o'clock, somebody's just coming 8:45, they're just coming, you're sitting there, they're just walking in, slowly strolling. So some of these things, that we need to deal with. Unfortunately now, and as you said, leading from the front, now people come to, I am in the office every day at 7 o'clock. And if the meeting is at 7, it's 7. If it's at 8, it's 8. And I think that, if you come at 8:05, you can go find your own other meeting and attend, and it's changing the control our budget. Another body that we can work with to help us. The Auditor General. Yeah. The National Commission on Human Rights, on human rights issues, Commission on Administrative Justice, just ensuring that there's fair administrative justice within the system. We also don't want to load it over, We want staff to be able to get fair administrative action. Not that anything goes, if I don't like you, if I don't like your face, I can do anything and you just go home. There has to be some of these institutions at the national level. The National Gender and Equality Commission, the National Land Commission, the Kenya School of Government in terms of training. So there are many, many opportunities for partnership with many of the national government institutions. As far as the private sector is concerned, development partners, private sector, I think there are many opportunities for partnership and collaboration in developing that first-class public service. But I'd like to say here, because there's a big debate raging about, the wage bill and the percentages, and I think my colleagues who were here yesterday said it, but I'd just like to reiterate it. Because every year there's an audit query on all our books with regards to the percentage, that your wage bill is higher than the recommended 35%. And on the county side, our perspective is that this is not an expenditure problem. This is a funding issue. Because if we have functions that are underfunded by over 230 billion, and then, these are 14 functions. Think about what does a person wake up to think about every day in the village? They think about their health, they think about agriculture, they think about water, they think about the environment, they think all roads, all these are devolved, including, ECD, VTC, and so on. But then if you look at the money, it's barely 15%. It's 9% of the budget, actually. So if you look at doing all these things within that money, and then if you hire ECD teachers, we are of the conviction that money for ECD did not follow the function. So you have to hire them. It's human capital development, actually. If you hire the doctors, you hire all these people, and then you're told cap it at 35%, but of what? Of a grossly underfunded budget. Yeah. Therefore, we believe that the question of the 35% for county governments is not a question of expenditure. It's more a question of if county governments are funded to the level they need to be, our wage bill will be 20% or 15 maybe. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Nice round of applause. Thank you for the illumination, especially in terms of collaboration and in terms of the shortfall. For sure, if you were to get whatever you needed, then the wage bill would not be an issue in terms of the discussions that you've mentioned. Thank you very much. Yes, we're coming to the plenary in just in a moment. I will want to ask a quick question to Mr. Mohammed Muzaffar Abdullah Hamid. He's the Director, Talent Development Section. 2-3 minutes. This one is a quick one. If you are given an opportunity to spearhead the productivity agenda in Kenya's public service, what would be your strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. A very good afternoon to the panelists and also to the...
It will be a bit loud. I think they need to hear you.
...of the conference for this caucus session. So from the experience of Malaysia, I think the first thing I will do is to establish a very strong governance whereby we've done this before, and we want to establish the good regulatory practice in order to improve the regulatory aspect of in order to fast track the implementation and to ensure that the regulations is within the current setting because of the advancement of technology, things like that. So what we did, we established the focus group on business process re-engineering, because that's what the member of panel said. We need to have a very strong dedication to improve ease of doing business. From there, we can get, when business came, investment came, then we can get more revenue for the country. So we established this focus group for business process re-engineering, which is chaired by the Public Service Department, Director General, and the members of the committee is also co-chaired by the industries from the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers, to be exact. And then the composition of the members is from the industries and also from the senior government officials. And from there, all the Secretary General of all ministries, we have about 24 ministries, they need to present to the committee and give their justification why this regulation does not need to be abolished. So this is where we have because we want to do it fast, we do it every day. And some of the session is done even after working hours and until at night, because we want to do it fast. Within 1 month, we produce a report, present to the Chief Secretary to the government, and then we start to improve the regulatory framework. So this is where I think we have at each ministry we establish regulatory coordinators so that we have frequent monitoring of the things that need to be done. So we can say the meeting is done on regular basis, maybe every 2 weeks, to ensure effective implementation. And I think within a year, we are able to improve the cost of doing business within the ministries, 1.5 billion ringgit per year. And We have done it for the past 10 years. We have saved about 15 billion, which is equivalent to 5 billion USD. So this is something that I think there must be a strong governance, a strong working committee, and we have a lot of projects which is done, and this project is being monitored. For example, I give an example like there's some impediment on building new hospitals that is 12, the ceiling is 12 stories because the price of the land is high. So there's some request from the investors, can we build more than 12 stories? So we talked to the fire department, they said we don't have the equipment to go beyond 12 stories. But why Hong Kong can do it? Why Singapore can do it? Why Dubai can do it? So we go there, we bring all these regulators, the fire departments, the local authorities, the planners, everyone, and see how the Hong Kong did. So what they did for stories that they have a hospital that is 40 stories. So they did, when they above the 12 stories, they have this disaster management plan. So using new technologies, new process, they streamline the process in terms of risk management. So this disaster management plan, they do not move or evacuate the patients to the ground floor. They just move within the same floor to a very a place that is safe, and until the firemen can dissolve the fire. So this is where, when we learn the technology, they learn the process. So this is where the regulators relax. And now we already have 3 hospitals. We're starting, I think, in 2020. Now we have 3 hospitals that is above 12 stories. 2 in Shah Alam. Avicenna Hospital, Avicenna Women and Children Hospital is 19 stories. And then we have the Management and Science University Hospitals, which is 14 stories. And we have a Thompson Hospital in Johor Bahru, which is neighboring to Singapore, which have more than 20 stories. So these new regulations allow the local authorities to generate more income because they provide the platform for business to grow. And these are the things that we are doing, and we hope if the regulators or the governments in Kenya would like to improve on that, I'm sure you can bring more, generate more revenue from there, creating more business, especially for the industry, and then you can improve on your collection of levy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you give a round of applause? Governance, and strong governance for that matter is going to be very vital. Dr. Stephen, the last question, and if you can be as brief as possible so we can allow the plenary also. How do you think academia then can continue to collaborate with governments to disseminate practices in terms of public service, productivity improvement? How can academia be able to collaborate with government to do that?
Thank you, moderator, and very, very interesting discussion coming out.
A bit of volume, I think. Yeah, it's on.
I hope I'm okay. Now, in terms of productivity, I think we already have an issue in terms of how do we measure, how do we get to know that productivity is being realized. To start with, I'm sure even the baseline in terms of productivity in Kenya, we do not have. So I think the theoretical approach plus more research, of course emanating from academia, would be quite vital, to be important in order to enrich, especially developing most of the indicators that will be required in order to demonstrate that productivity is being realized. Now, in public service, you realize that more of approach is that of doing the right thing, doing the right thing, conforming to ISO 9001, achieving the contract performance. But if you look at it, does it actually resort to productivity? If you look at even what our honorable governors are actually putting forward, are we aware at what point resources are more productive? Is it at national level, or is it at the county level? That can only be answered by use of research. And you realize that once it comes to academia, we are well enriched in that, though we also suffer from performance issues. You know, at times I ask myself, does increasing the number of graduates result to performance? In fact, I've been worried along the way that if a governor puts up a building in form of a dispensary, it will be termed as development. But if we employ medics and probably also supply medical equipment, it may be termed as a recurrent expenditure. Now, at what point then do we differentiate what is development? Of course, the governors have been asking that. So it's a question of actually also understanding what we mean once we talk about productivity. You know that productivity has a number of elements. It has what we call efficiency, and we were told yesterday effectiveness comes in. You can look at it in terms of allocative efficiency, having the right personnel. We've been talking about skills matching. Mm-hmm. We can also talk about minimization of resources, whereby you minimize resources, but you maintain the output. So it has a number of elements so that before even we talk about achieving the productivity, we need to come out clearly with what is this productivity we are looking for. Of course, develop. And you know, once it comes to public sector, it is not like private sector where we have directly profit realized may be an indicator of good performance. In public sector where maybe we are talking of provision of public good, provision of public service, things that do not have, of course, the price tag, then at what point then do we have productivity being clearly identified? So in this case, I'm saying we need academia to come up with good indicators, proper base for productivity, mm-hmm. so that together then we are able to move realizing the same.
I like, thank you very much. Give me a round of applause. I like that very much because then there is, much as we are talking about OMAX and a few other tools that we can use, I think there's an opportunity for then you to come in, do a lot of empirical research, and there's a lot of data in the counties. It's 10 years now. I mean, you have enough information to tell us what is productivity for the county, you know, the issue that Mheshimiwa is saying here in terms of the shortage in even what they're receiving. For sure, if you're receiving 50% less and you're using the same ratio, there's definitely no fairness in terms of comparison. Thank you very much. We will quickly take some questions from the floor. I'll probably just identify yourself, your name, the institution you represent, and just ask one question kindly so that we do the first round, probably second round, and maybe a third. Let me start from any hands. That's number 1 and 2, the gentleman in white. Number 3, sir, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So let's start from 1, 2, 3, 4. There was 5, 6 here, and 7. Quickly, if you can tell us your name, where you're from, and a question, and to who you're asking that question kindly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am Jacob Molo from Kenyatta University, and proudly from Homa Bay County. Thank you very much. So to Governor Njuki, this is just a comment. Your last statement is that you need to know what the government did to not to make them inactive. I think what we need to do is just to appreciate that trade unions are necessary evils. They will be there, and they will continue to be there. But the good thing is that you are appreciating that the negotiating capacity or the negotiating skills of government is lower than that of the union. So the point is, let government take up the responsibility to increase the capacity of their negotiating team. The unions have actually done that over the years because they came from the backdrop of a perception that trade unionism is for those people who have not gone to school. So they actually voluntarily went back, took up issues for training, and built their capacities. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that comment. Thank you so much, Daktari. Yes, sir. Gentleman in white.
Hello. My question, I'm Felix Chalamanda. I'm coming from Malawi. And my question goes to Muhammad over there. Her Excellency talked about the issues of devaluation. Now, your question was on if you were given the agenda to champion it, how do you talk to it? I was looking at the issues of the devolution versus the introduction of productivity versus the acceptance levels, because this is a new phenomenon and philosophies which everybody has to embrace, because even within the management levels, there could be some pockets of resistance, so much that they can influence the workflow down, so that the agenda isn't actually realized. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Number 3 was here. Number 3, yeah.
Thank you, moderator. Your Excellency, Isai Okoto, the board chair, Homa Bay County. I have my question, and my question is being directed to Dr. Kipngetich. When he worked at the KWS, he talked of facilitation that realized maximum growth in 2011, which has never been broken. And when we talk of facilitation, me as a board chair, for me to do effective public service, then I need to offer training, I need to give incentive and reward to the workers. Now, what will be my tool on the side of facilitation? Because what I'm now realizing, the 30% wage bill is not an issue. The issue is how do we promote productivity in order to retain, because if the counties can be facilitated to the agreed amount, then we'd not be talking of the 35%. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 4 is next to you, then 5. Then
thank you.
6 and 7, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is basically to the 2 Excellency Governors. We are talking of productivity in counties. And when we look at the counties, it looks like the counties were either condemned or what? Because Governor Wanga talked of corporations. Look at the way the counties are begging for disbursements of their share. If they can tell you the truth, they have people living in Nairobi to beg for disbursements. Sometimes the workers in the counties go for 2-3 months without salaries. Yet, it is the same tax that is used to pay a worker in the county and in the national government. So what I'm asking is, for us to experience productivity in equal measure, then the counties need to be also treated the same way. I have never seen where a national government employee goes 3-4 months without salary. I'm not sure whether the controller of budget scrutinizes the requests from national government like she scrutinizes the requests from county governments. Look at the audit reports. I am an accountant. I've been perusing through the audit reports of counties as opposed to the audit reports of national government entities. And I have sat in audit committees of both entities. The circumstances are the same, the omissions are the same, the opinions are different. That exactly tells you that either there is a problem, a perception, that counties is where all wrong things are done, and so they are mistreated for that. So for us to exercise productivity in equal measure, then it's high time the national government, or the government as a whole, treats counties equally the way they treat national government. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that was a comment, right? Not a question. Thank you very much. Yes, sir? And you forgot to tell us your name, sir. This Ogoto. What is your name? Very good, Dr. Kereri. Thank you so much. Yes, sir?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Donald Murgor. I'm the Chair, Water Resource Authority, formerly WARMA. Mine goes to the governors. And taking what Dr. Kimwetich told us in KWS, and we all know in Kenya that currently the resources are dwindling. What are the countries doing? What are the quick wins that you can use to turn around so that, for instance, I've been to Homa Bay. It's a very beautiful county. Tourism can be one thing that Governor Wanga can run away with to generate their own internal resources. Because if we continue relying on Treasury, and Treasury is giving everybody funding and there are no funds, what are the quick wins? Governor Wanga also told us employees come to the office with slippers, others come drunk. These are the people you should do radical surgery so that we get rid of these guys, we make counties more productive as we wait for resources to flow from Treasury. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's number 6 there and then number 7. Kuleju.
Thank you so much.
Number 6.
It was number 6. Okay, hang on, sir. Hang on. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, let me congratulate the panelists for weighing in into these matters in a very good way. My name is Dr. Kimwetich Kirui, the CC in charge of public service, Bomet County. I want to ask my question or direct my question to His Excellency Muthomi Njuki from Tharaka Nithi. In the counties, we are said to be employers of doctors, and currently they have their industrial strike. Now, my question, Your Excellency, is, or I'm thinking loud, to whom are these KMPDU directing their action? Number 2, we have been wishfully thinking that the government takes over the training that these very senior or these very expensive courses like doctors go for specialization. They take about 3 to 4 years. There are some even who went for training before COVID, and they are now blaming COVID in quotes. They are not back in the station. We have been wishfully thinking that maybe the national government needs to take over this training. So my question is, for how long are we going to be wishfully thinking that this happens? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Number 7. You'll be number 1 in the next round. Number 7 was there? Sorry. Next round, you'll be number 1. He was number 7. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the offer of the time to speak. My name is Jero Kanyamba. I am a trade unionist per se. I am the CEO at the Trade Unions Congress, which I'm representing today, which brings in quite a number of the public service unions here, UASU, KUSU, UKCS, and several others. I'm also the Secretary General of a new union, the Kenya Independent Commission's Workers Union. If I've not come to your commission, take note.
My brother, ask the question, please.
I'll be very brief. I also want to say I was the immediate former Secretary General. I am actually the immediate former Secretary General of KUPPET. So it is trade union and everything trade union. Now I come from Tharaka-Nithi, where the decent young man here, sitting here, the governor of Tharaka-Nithi comes from, where is my governor. And he's doing a splendid job in Tharaka-Nithi. We are not worried about the weather. We will manage it. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk about only one issue, the strike.
Are you asking a question
very brief.
or is a comment?
I will comment. I'm commenting.
Okay, make it brief, please. Thank you.
Very brief. You need to know why the strike. The first thing is that a trade union is registered to operate and has every right to manage its business under the Kenya Constitution, Section 4. And two, that a union does not wake up and go on strike and call members to strike. They give a notice of a minimum of 14 days before so that they can, that's now at the point of the strike. But before the strike, there is negotiation. They give you demand issues as an employer. You just need to talk to them. If they feel you are not talking to them, they will give you a notice to go on strike. And that notice is 14 days. Section 59 of the Labor Relations Act that discusses about the negotiations and the agreement. If the agreement has been signed after a negotiation, then that agreement becomes what in law is called functus officio. You have to implement it. It is signed. There is nothing you can do. You cannot renegotiate it if it has been signed. Again, it is registered in court. At that point, then the process has crossed the Rubicon. You can't go back.
Thank you,
they have crossed,
okay.
And they will bring down the bridge, finally.
Thank you.
When it is at that point, the only way you can walk out of it is call the union leaders. If you can't implement what you signed for, call them, talk to them outside the corner, and then you can sign what is called return to work formula. Simple.
Thank you.
Return to work formula will take them out of the streets. You can tell
Thanks,
them I'll implement next time. And then it is return to work formula. That is what the deputies are waiting for today. If you do that, tomorrow they will be they'll be back into the hospitals. Thank you.
Thank you. I know our leaders are very much aware, but thank you for probably reminding us that nothing is cast on stone, if that's what I heard you saying. If I can't afford, probably we should be able to negotiate. Your Excellencies, a number of questions have come to you. Probably you want to respond, and I think there's one question to Dr. Kipngetich. And then we can probably take another round of questions.
I start?
Yes, please.
Okay, then I will start with the one of productivity in counties by Keriri from Nyamira. It is true that the two levels of government are seen to be distinct, do not have what we call equity in terms of veto power. They do not have the same in terms of access to privileges. I want to believe it's because one of the government is very young and is being bullied by the big brother. They say we have 49 counties, one nation, with 49 governments, 48 governments, one country. But you look at most of the functions that are supposed to be supported by independent institutions. What we call independent institutions also answer to one arm of government, or one of the governments, which is the national government. When it comes to disbursement, the Treasury, which decides when to give the resources, the Cabinet Secretary sits in the executive. And therefore, they do not sit in the executive of the county government, they sit in the national executive. I probably want to think that is why they see us as another level of government. That is why you hear those governors or those counties as if we are not part of government, as it were. And until Treasury becomes independent, we'll continue experiencing the same perennial problem where the national government pays its employees, disperses money for functions in national government, and counties are seen to be another maybe interruption of flow in systems, and they'll get their resources later. There's always the question of, why are you not generating enough resources as counties, what they call own resource revenue, for you to cater for your needs? What we collect in counties is what the local authorities used to collect. If Kenya wants counties to be dependent, then you have to go the federal way. Allow the county government to collect pay as you want in those counties, because even that money you give us as a disbursement, 30% comes back instantly. In fact, sometimes it lands when the KRS already issued a warrant to arrest the whole sum of amount because you not paid pay as you want. Sometimes it's so bad that you even borrow from a bank to pay salaries because money has not come for 3 months, and the KRA has the audacity to send you a warrant to ask you, since you paid salaries, can you please pay as you want? How do I borrow from a bank to pay KRA? You know, and those are the things that we are seeing. It is some form of harassment to counties, even when they are making efforts. So until we have the authority, or rather we have a revenue system that allows counties to collect their money, because if I collect my pay as you want from all employees of the county, including the private sector, if I collect all the KRA dues like VAT from the county, if I'm able to collect turnover tax in the county, then there's no way I can be able to raise enough for us to be able to pay or cater for all the needs. In America, I think the counties collect, then there's a percentage they remit to the national government. I think it should be the other way, because if you look at even the number of employees in Kenya, most of them in county government. I know all counties are not the same. Some, it may not work because of their size, but we would like that research to be done. Otherwise, we will still be having a system of governance that completely disadvantages the other one. When one becomes the beggar, the other one becomes the supplier. On that same issue, allow me just to mention briefly on the issue of crawling back on devolution, because the national government has never been able to let go of the devolved functions in totality. You find that a ministry that has got devolved functions like health, where, for example, 95% of the facilities, medical facilities in Kenya are in counties. Actually it's not 5%. I can count the number of facilities that are with the national government, which is level 7, level 6, and I don't think they have any dispensaries and health centers. But with just the simple rule of coordination standards, you'll find the Ministry of Health having a budget that is higher than the budget for health for the 47 counties combined together. Why do we leave so much money at the Ministry of Health, yet where the rubber meets the road is the counties where most facilities are located? Who can ensure that that happens? Definitely it is, again, the executive who are in charge of ensuring that the cake is shared equally with the equity among the counties and the national government. Agriculture, you are aware of what is happening in that space at the moment. The role of distributing or purchasing and distributing fertilizer commodity. Today, surely, how many farmers does the national government have? By a touch of a button, the governor of Homa Bay can tell you how many farmers she has, how many are growing tobacco. The extension workers belong to her. I know how many farmers are doing coffee and tea, what fertilizer they need. Then why does the Minister of Agriculture from Nairobi has to purchase fertilizer, then send to counties and tell counties do to do last mile connection? Why not give us the money and hold us responsible for the fertilizer? I'm sure if that happened, you'll not be talking about what you're talking about at the moment. How many of the countries would have bought fake fertilizer or what they call substandard fertilizer? That is something you need to ask yourself, even without having to go to many other departments where we have crawled functions of the national government. The chair of Water Resource Authority, you asked a very good question in terms of, again, capacity building and resources. And you've reminded me that counties has competition from what we call regional authorities departments that are doing the same role that is supposed of what is devolved. There has been a push in very many sectors to get rid of some of these regional authorities, some of the parastatals that are doing the same work with the devolved units, so that we can reduce on the workforce, we can reduce on bureaucracies, and have the money channeled there. But if you remember that regional authorities are normally funded from the national government, then it tells you where the money that is supposed to go to the counties is going. Why should you have a regional authority that is providing water in the county when the county is also providing water and has what we call community water project and even the water project that across the whole county? Why do we have two authorities providing the same function and many others? So again, it is a question of resources, having competition the way they should not be, and would definitely have streamline of flow of work activities that will enable efficiency. The doctor strike that Dr. Kipngetich, you've asked a very pertinent question on the issue of the KMPDU. Where are they directing their actions to? And the question of training. The KMPDU miraculously purports to be negotiating for the health workers of Kenya. Who is the employer of the health workers of Kenya? When we were changing the constitution and we promulgated the 2010 constitution, all the teachers were put on a Teacher Service Commission. They are paid by the TSC. It was an attempt to have all the workers put under health work service. And the formulators or the people who did the constitution said, no, health is devolved, let the counties take care of it. So every county has the employers who report to them and who they have a working relationship with. They have terms of employment and so on and so forth. The terms of employment for Kirinyaga may not be the same as the one for the Rakanidi, same for the Homa Bay, because I might be having my staff on agreed terms of having contracts instead of having permanent and pensionable. It may be performance-based. Mine may have signed performance contract, others have not signed. All those are in the same union in Nairobi, which purports to negotiate for all the workers. And it is my conviction that the KMPDU is purporting to be negotiating for the workers, the health workers in Kenya or the doctors in Kenya, but it is just a union that probably is making our workers I don't want to say tough-headed or red-headed, because if I negotiate with my workers, some of the issues that we are talking about here have been taken care of by the workers, by the counties. Promotions are going on, probably in Homa Bay County. Maybe another county has not done the same. Training, doctors are being released to go on training by one county. They're not being released in another county, because each county has its own working arrangement in the county. So when you take all the doctors on strike in what they are calling comradeship, or in, how do they put it? They say in solidarity, that my doctors have to go on strike because Kirinyaga doctors were sacked, or they were given contracts instead of permanent and pensionable. Why do the residents of Tharaka-Nithi have to suffer because Kirinyaga is on contracts? You know, that is why we are saying each local union should be able to negotiate with their county rather than have an umbrella body of KMPDU. Of course, it is, they collect dues, which is very critical for them. That is why they represent even the interns who are not employees. They do not have a payroll number, yet they are not remitting any dues, but they are represented by a union. I'm not saying they should not be represented, but that is an issue that should again not affect all the counties. It should just affect those particular interns. On the issue of training, lastly, so that I give my colleague an opportunity to answer what I've left. Counties have been religiously allowing doctors to go on training. However, they continue paying their salaries when they're out there on training. Sometimes they exceed the time they were supposed to have trained and come back for reasons that the national government has not been able to pay their fee in a particular university where they went to. They are made to repeat the course. Of course, they don't report to you. They just say they are still on. They have not graduated. A doctor that may have gone on training for 3 years reports back after 6 years. I'm informed that some of the union officials in KMPDU who are agitating for this strike, some of them have been on training for 9 years. I'm not saying particular names, but just go and find out who. And that is where there is a big problem, because while you are away on training and I'm paying your salary as a governor, who is attending to my patients? The national government therefore should be able to take up not just the cost of training, they should also be able to take up salaries for those doctors who are on training. That way they can be more keen on paying the fees in good time. They can also be more keen on the quality of training so that we can be able to use that money to pay other doctors either on short contracts or in full term, just in case those other doctors don't come back. And we have said we need a coordination, because at the moment, there is no consideration of what percentage of your doctors should go on training. It is, I calculated today, out of the 54 doctors that I have in Tarakanidi, 15 are on study leave, paid. It is 27% workforce that is out. I have not given you the number of those who are on annual leave and the ones who have taken probably what they call on off for the weekend. That means we are operating at very low capacity because of lack of coordination. So you should come up with a policy on what is the percentage of doctors that can be away from a station at any one particular time. Before the national government releases you or says, I'm going to fund you to go on study leave, the county should be able to tell you how much they'll suffer or whether they have adequate numbers as you take away my doctor for training for that case. So I agree, there's a problem there, and we must handle the issue of training with the patients in mind, because that is definitely what we are trained to come and do, is serve the patients. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Your Excellency, Madam Wanga.
Thank you. I think Governor Mudomi has covered really most of the questions. He's also my chair. We both in the Health Committee, he's the chair, I'm the vice chair. So he's taken a lot of those questions, I think also in his capacity as chair of the Health Committee of the Council. I just wanted to agree with you, Dr. Akure. I think of Chair of Nyamira Public Service Board, I think you are not really asking questions, you are commenting strongly. But as a clever man, you put them in form of a question so that nobody attaches them back to you. They just say, no, but I was only asking. But the points you've made are valid.
Yeah.
You know, why are counties being treated as children of a lesser God? We are all working for the same government. For example, an employee of a county government, of a national government. Why should one wait for 4 months while the other gets paid promptly? And there's the notion that when counties are given 15% as prescribed by the Constitution, that this is a donation from the national government to the county governments of the revenues they have collected. The reality is the national government collects revenue on all our behalf, so that we don't do what Mudami was saying, everyone collecting their own VAT, everyone collecting. So when 15% is advanced, it is advanced because the national government remains with part of it and we get part of it, and it's not a donation Because I hear many times people saying, why are counties just waiting for the national government's money? Why are they not raising money on their own? This is all our money.
That's true.
The cake is for all of us, and therefore, it should just be done promptly. We are not saying efforts have not been made. I think a lot of efforts have been made to even make the payments prompt and so on, but it's just not good enough yet. But I also want to respond to Donald's, Mr. Murgo's point, which was that, you know, even as National Treasury comes, everybody's hard up what account is doing, you know, to boost productivity and to raise resources even at the county level. And I think, and you mentioned Homa Bay and tourism and so on, and I'd just like to say that I don't think counties are sitting on their laurels saying, you know, let's just wait here for money to come. I think counties are making a lot of effort. We have recently, for example, in Homa Bay, had an investment conference where we were trying to put out there what is available to investors to come to Homa Bay, because we don't want also everybody coming to look for jobs in the county government, because in many counties, the county government is the only employer. Is the only employer. Is the only place where people can go and knock doors for jobs. So how do we get out of this? And this is why we are saying, oh, we are agriculturally productive. Let's do agro-processing. Let's open up for tourism. Let people invest in hospitality. Let people invest in the coffee sector. Let people invest variously so that we also create jobs within the private sectors in these areas. But also to just go back to to agriculture. And that is why we are very, very serious even about the fertilizer issue, because we are telling our farmers, let's go back to the farms. And shame on those who then bring stones as fertilizers to our farmers. I mean, shame on them. Let us our jobs seriously. And that's why as counties we have said today, agriculture is a devolved function. Let purchase of fertilizers come back to the county so that people can hold you responsible for your farmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. Yes, Dr. Kipngetich, there's a question that was asked. Maybe you can pick it up from there.
Okay, thank you very much. I think, just to follow up on what the governors have said, there's a serious issue of duplication in government, which goes back to, have we implemented the 2010 Constitution as it was written? The answer is no. He gave the example of Minister of Health. That is actually a good example, but it's duplicated across many other ministries. So we need to relook at that. I propose that we have a summit to just discuss Schedule 4 of the Constitution. Just a separate summit. Because you see, money follows functions. But you see now, Schedule 4 defines the functions, but the money didn't move as it was required. So part of this conversation, therefore, is to have Schedule 4 as a separate summit on its own. And then there was the issue of, when the Minister of Devolution came in 2013, there was a rationalization which was expected. And it's called the CAPS report, CARPS. Now, we need now to look at that CAPS report and say what functions were rationalized and the staff right sizing that comes with it, so that then we are clear what national government has and what the county government has. Because what happened in 2013, we released the counties, but we never released the people. So what the counties then went ahead to do is to employ more people, because the national government never released the people. So we ended up duplicating at counties for people who are actually sitting at the national government. For example, my view is any function which was devolved should never have a corresponding ministry at the center. So ideally, there should never be a Minister of Health, because a Minister of Health is superfluous, it's a duplication. Similarly, Minister of Agriculture should never exist. So any function which is fully devolved should never have a minister at the center. And that way, we are actually rationalizing functions, and then the staff right-sizing that comes with it follows. Like, for example, why should we have a Minister of Lands and a National Lands Commission? It's a duplication. So we need to look at all those together, so that then as part of then aiming at 35%, we can say we have rationalized the functions and staff right sizing. Now, on the issue of what Ogoto was talking about on KWS, okay, probably the story of KWS will be told for many years, but I can summarize it as follows, in terms of being an example of what public sector reform can do to unlock the potential of the country. I arrived there in 2004, and the first thing I was confronted with was a deficit. I had a deficit of 1 billion shillings in 2004. I don't know what in today's currency that would be.
Hello.
And we were not paying salaries on time. So what these governors are going through is not new, okay? And people were demoralized. They were feeling, well, so why are we here? Okay? So I did a quick assessment, and I talked to senior staff, and we said the first place we will attack is corruption. That was the first attack. And in the first 6 months, I had an extra 300 million just by fighting corruption, because we had done an assessment and 48% of the revenue was being stolen. So we said, okay, let's start there. And then we then said, okay, we look at the prices of national parks, and we say that was too low. Somebody coming all the way from New York to pay $27 in Nakuru, we say that was unacceptable. And so we gradually increased the price. By the time I left, the price was $80, and nobody complained. There were no riots. There were no demonstrations. We were delivering value. What was that value? We sat with the tourism industry and said, what do we need to do for you? And they said, just make sure the basic facilities for tourists are there, then we'll accept a price increase. So we did the roads, we did the toilets, we did the signages, okay? And we allowed private sector to come in and build lodges, hotels, and around. Then there were communities complaining. You say, okay, it looks you guys are making money. Why don't you share it with us? We reached out to the communities and told them, no, okay, I don't have enough, okay? Why don't you do what the national government does? Which is, create your own national parks. And today, that was the genesis for what we call today conservancies. When I arrived in 2004, there was only one next to Lewa called Ilingwes. Can you guess how many we have today? I'm the chairman of one group of them called NRT. NRT has 45, so it grew from Ilingwes 1 to today 45. And collectively, the 45 called NRT today are richer than KWS. Because then the communities took control of their own fate. So today, we have now 85 conservancies in the whole country. 20 around Masai Mara, 16 around Amboseli, and in the north, from Lamu to Turkana, we have 45. Collectively, all of them control 15 million acres. 15 million acres is double all the national parks together, combined, all of them. Then we said, okay, let's make that investment, and I will give the example of the two governors here. In Homa Bay, we did the fencing, and we did an airstrip inside the park, and we brought rhinos. Okay. Unfortunately, I left. I wanted to bring elephants. That was the next one. In Tharaka and Meru County, they have a park called Meru National Park. We invested 1 billion shillings by putting, the first thing was to protect the people. We put an electric fence from Murera Gate to Ura. Okay? And then we created a rhino sanctuary. We did the roads, we did the signages, and then began attracting investments. One of the best honeymoon destinations in Kenya is actually in Meru National Park called Elsa Kopje. Probably some of you have been there on your honeymoon. So All that was done within 8 years. Can you imagine what we could do collectively together if we just sacrifice ourselves and say we are not going to steal? For the 8 years I was in KWS, I never ever appeared in Parliament to answer any audit query because there were none. And if you look at the accounts of KWS from 2005 to 2012 when I left, it was from the Auditor General clean audit report. All of them for the period I was there. So therefore, what I'm saying is it is possible. Government, both at national level and at county level, one, you are not an employment bureau. Please, even if you are the only employer, please resist the temptation to be an employment bureau. What is your role? Your role is to facilitate private sector to come in, to create the jobs. And that is why I engaged Homa Bay, and we are working together with Governor Wanga on that issue of how she is going to create an enabling environment using a public service for investors to come in. I was very happy about the investment conference, and we will work together and give them advice on how it is done, so that then she can execute. So she talked about agriculture, okay? I've already alerted her, don't do too much to go at one go. You know, go systematically as you build capacity to facilitate private sector to create the jobs. When I was in KW, I was not an employment bureau, and I told them as much. People accused me in my village and said, why didn't you employ so many people? I said, I was not an employment bureau. I was there to facilitate private sector to thrive. And I'm happy about the communities who already thrive, from 1 conservancy to 85 today. That is what we mean by progress, because then communities take control of their own lives. Then, of course, internal revenue moved. You know, when I was there from 2004, and I left in 2012, the revenue grew 7 times. And when we grew the revenue 7 times, we increased the employee pay 3 times. And we did a lot of infrastructure to support. You know, employees, I left there then 12 years ago, and employees tell me the only vehicles that still function are the ones you bought. It's possible. What I can tell you, Ogoto, is it just requires dedication. And I'm glad that Governor Wanga is here telling you, okay, let us have a 10-year strategy. And if you go the way you have, we defined your goals in our meeting, I can guarantee you, by the time Governor Wanga does our 10 years, Homa Bay will be probably the top 5 in all indicators for the country. My best wishes.
Excellent, thank you. Wow, our time has really run. There's only one hand that was raised here that I told I'll take next round. Kindly, kindly. One hand here. Our time has run, and our honorables. Yes, I can see those very nice hands. There's one hand here. Where is that mic, please? Oh, the question was answered. All right, no problem. Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you're the first one, I just want to take one hand. Gender sensitive? Okay, then I'll take only those 2. 1 and 2. Kindly, our time is running out. Tafadhali, we don't want to keep you here. Yes, sir? Can I ask you a question quickly, please?
Thank you. My name is Engineer Ngeno. I'm the chair of Public Service Board in Bomet. Mine is very brief. It's about governance, which a friend from Malaysia said. There are issues. I know Your Excellencies, you come in, you would want to employ people, particularly those issues to do with advisors. Why did you have partnership with SRC and maybe IGRTC to ask for a leeway in supervisors, the number where you will be comfortable with, rather than leaving it the way it is, and then you push public service boards to do that which is not lawful. And then second is about what I'm seeing. I don't know whether other people have seen. where we have local politicians coming around and brandishing employment letters from TSC to people in the local areas. I don't know whether that is the direction now we want to take as a government. Thank you.
I'm not sure that's a productivity question. I don't know.
politics.
One question because of, all right, it looks like, Mike, just give a mic, please. I'll just take this too kindly. We conclude because our time is really run out.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Ruth Allo. I'm the CEO of the Homa Bay County Public Service Board.
Oh,
yes.
Your boss is here now. Okay,
yeah,
go
my
ahead.
boss is here, and my question is to my boss, unfortunately. Yeah, Your Excellency, we've had a lot of conversations here on the productivity matrices that are being developed, particularly at the national government entities. My concern is that counties, we are a little bit left behind, looking at how far the national government has gone, and in view of the now one government approach to this issue of wage bill, my concern is how soon can we partner with the State Department of Labor that houses the productivity corporation, so that we can begin immediate work in our counties to develop our productivity matrices in our performance contracts. Thank you. I would like also to comment that counties is not all gloom and doom, as sometimes it is portrayed. Counties, we are doing our best, and with the right leadership, like our governor is doing, the counties will soon shine and do even better than the national government. Thank you.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Thank you very much. Do you want to say anything, Your Excellency? Or you're happy that you have a staff who want to surprise you by doing good?
Thank you very much. I think, you asked on the issue of advisors. I think we have raised this thing with the SRC severally because of the way times have changed and the way issues are different in different counties. And I think SRC has been responsive. Homa Bay, for example, we wrote and said we need these advisors, and I think they wrote back and guided that we have allowed you to take up so and so and so and so. So, but remember, the board also cannot run away from its role of creating offices within the county public service. That is also a role that is placed with the board. So, Kangumu, you have to take up that responsibility also. I think our boards can't run away from that responsibility. So long as we have staff establishments that are agreeable, so long as we have, there are emerging areas, for example, in Homa Bay, areas like blue economy and so on and so forth. And every time you want to prioritize them, then the board must take up its responsibility of adjusting the staff establishment as necessary and creating the necessary offices and then hiring according to the law if we need those skills. So we will work with SRC, but also on the other side. So, but Ruth also, I think the whole discussion, and that's the CEO of our Homa Bay Public Service Board, the whole discussion and the question you raised with me around collaborations answers to that question of anywhere we see opportunities where the national government has gone ahead or has things that they can share. I think we jump onto those opportunities for collaboration. We collaborate immediately. I don't think we should waste any time because what we want is a first-class public service and we want productivity. We want for the money we are putting into paying people to show in terms of productivity. So I think there is no reason to wait for anything. I think the board should just take up any lessons or learnings we have from this conference and immediately engage with any bodies that can assist us. Thank you, and thank you for the job that they're all doing down there.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to our panel discussion. We just want to say thank you very much for being here with us. And the panel, thank you so much. I know you have so many questions, but unfortunately, we don't have all the time that we can be able to use. We just want to quickly appreciate our panelists. We have a small token, small gift we want to give you as you leave. Let me ask my colleagues, please come and let's just do that. Tumenulia majani kidogo ya kwenda kupika chai. Ukumbuke mlikuwa katika conference yetu. They're all the same colors. So let's give the ladies first.
chochote nipandacho kinanawiri. Namba moja tuko kileleni, Nimezaliwa Kenya, nimelelewa Kenya, Nimezaliwa Kenya, nimelelewa Kenya, Hapa ndipo nyumbani, pengine sipatambui. Hapa ndipo nyumbani, pengine sipatambui.
All right, thank you very much. We have tea where you had your lunch. Kindly, before you leave, you can go back and enjoy the tea. Otherwise, the meeting stands adjourned. Tomorrow, let's come early. We start quite early. By 10 o'clock, we want to hand over the meeting to our chief guest. So have a good evening. See you tomorrow morning. Bye.